10th canto, we're on chapter 45, which is entitled Krishna Rescues His Teacher's Son. We're just starting the chapter. Not the first verse, but we're in the beginning. And starting with verse number 4. So everyone can recite. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Once again, Srimad Bhagavatam 10:45-4. Nalabdo daita hatayor vaso no bhavat antike. Yambala Pitri Gehastha Vindate Lalita Mudan. Deprived by fate, we could not live with you and enjoyed the pampered happiness most children enjoy in their parents' home. This is Krishna speaking to Vasudeva and Devaki. Purport. Here, Lord Krishna points out, not only did his parents suffer in separation from him and Balaram, but the two boys also suffered in separation from their parents. So read to verse 9. Sarvata sambhavo deho janita poshito yataha natayor yati nirvesham pitror martya Shatayusha. With one's body, one can acquire all the goals of life. And it is one's parents who give the body's birth and sustenance. Therefore, no mortal man can repay his debt to his parents, even if he serves them for a full lifetime of 100 years. Purport. Having stated, both of you are parents, and we have suffered because of our separation. Krishna now states that his and Balaram's religious principles have been spoiled by their failure to satisfy their parents. Yastayor atmaja kalpa atmana cha dhanena cha vrittim na dadyat tam pretya swamam sham Kadayantihi. A son, though able to do so, fails to provide for his parents with physical resource, wealth, is forced after his death to eat his own flesh. Mataram pitaram vritham bharyam sadvim sutam shishum gurum vipram prapanam cha kalpo bhibharach shwashanmrita. A man, though able to do so, fails to support his elderly parents, chaste wife, young child, or spiritual master, or neglects a brahmana, or anyone who comes to him for shelter, is considered dead, though breathing. Tan na. See you later, Ramananda. Akalpana Kamsan. Nityam Ugvigna Chetaso. Mogam ete vyatati kranta. Divasa vam. Ana archayotoho. Thus, we have wasted these days, unable as we were to properly honor you, because our minds were always disturbed by fear of Kamsa. Purport. Lord Krishna continues to bring Vasudeva and Devaki back to their normal parental feelings towards him and Balaram. An ordinary child would be afraid of a cruel, tyrannical king like Kamsa, and Lord Krishna plays the part of such a child, thus evoking the parental sympathy of Vasudeva and Devaki. And last verse that we're covering. Tat shantum arhatas tata mata no para chantrayoho kurvato vam sushushra sam klishtayor durhidabrisha. Dear mother and father, please forgive us for not serving you. We are not independent and have been greatly frustrated by cruel Kamsa. According to Sanskrit grammar, this is a purport pada Chantrayaho and Klishtayaho may also refer to Vasudeva and Devaki. Actually, Vasudeva and Devaki were under the control of providence and were disturbed by the activities of Kamsa, whereas Krishna is always the absolute personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Katanchana Smrite Yasmin Dushkaram Shukaram Bhavet Vismrite Viparitam Shat Shri Chaitanya Namamitam. So Hare Krishna, we had just finished the demise of Kamsa. And now Krishna is meeting with his parents, and he's speaking very lovingly. Kamsa was taken out by the strength of Krishna. Actually, we have a little story for you. Kamsa as a gopi. Kamsa as a gopi. Actually, this is from the oral tradition of Yavata, which is a place in Vrindavan, but it's also the details of this story are also confirmed in Rupa Goswami's Lalita Madhava. And so one day, Kamsa, he knew very well about Krishna and Balaram, therefore he's always sending all these demons to fight Krishna and Balaram. And he sent this demon, that demon, another demon, another demon, another demon, another demon. As we discussed earlier, all these demons had become subjected to the control of Kamsa because he had defeated all these demons personally and made them his servants. And so he's sending demon after demon after demon. Actually, if you there are other minor demons that are not even mentioned in the Krishna book. It's described that one are in the Bhagavatam. There are minor demons that it's described that Krishna and his friends would have lunch and they would play so much, and just to make sure Krishna eats his lunch on time, it was arranged that a demon would appear. Krishna would fight the demon, and after the fight, they were like, "Okay, we fought that demon. Let's go have lunch." And so, just to keep a nice hearty schedule. But you have these major demons that are described here, and Kamsa is sending them one after another. But not only does Kamsa know about Krishna and Balaram, but in the Lalita Madhava it says he also knows about Radharani, and he's like hearing about this most beautiful of gopis. And so he decides, maybe I can kidnap the backyard. Maybe I can kidnap this Radharani. If she is so beautiful, then I'll kidnap her, I'll take her. And so he actually goes to a place called Yavata, and he's there with his he leaves his army behind, and someone's asking, what is the backyard again? Someone said it's like the backyard again. They have all these adventures every day. So their backyard. But Krishna, every day he has adventures in his forest. And they do have a lot of song and dancing and stuff, just like the backyard again. So Kamsa goes there, and he goes to a Kishori Kun. He's quite thirsty, so he gets off his horses, and he goes to Kishori Kun, and he puts his hand in the water, and he takes a sip. And then he hears his horses go, like make their horse. What's the sound? The horse. What is it called? Mm-hmm. The horse's sound. What is it? So chuff, I guess. I don't know.
Whinny or neigh.
Hey, whinny or neigh. Yeah. So So they let out a mild neigh, and they're looking at him quite surprised. And Kamsa is, uh, he's looking around, what's going on? And he looks back in the water, and he sees a maiden in the water. It's like she's dressed uh, like a cowherd girl, but she's in the water, so maybe she's like some celestial uh, forest, like a spirit, like a, what do you call, a yaka. But then and so he goes to grab her, but then he realizes, wait, that's his reflection. He sees his his hand, and he gets up, and his movements are all quite delicate, and he says, what happened? But his voice is also it's no longer this very powerful voice. It's a very, very gentle, mild, meek voice. Nickering. There you go. We got a horse expert here, Bhima Peru. And so he is in a lot of anxiety now, in the form of a young cowherd girl. And he sees a gopi named Lalita, and he says, what happened here? And she said, why are you here? First she's nice, but then he says, I'm Kamsa, I'm the king of this land, and this happened to me. She said, oh, I understand. Kishori Kun fulfills all desires. You must have been lusty, thinking of gopis. You probably came here to kidnap one of our girls. He said, please, you have to help me. You have to help me. And so then he was actually brought into the presence of Radharani, and she spoke with him, and then she chastised him a little bit, saying, oh, maybe you should stay like this. Actually, great devotees are praying to attain this form, just like a gopi. And you said you wanted a gopi to take back to Mathura? There you go. Go back to Mathura. Right? And so he was begging and begging. And see, Radharani was saying, you send demons here all the time to attack Krishna. And if you make a promise never to send a demon again, then we can we can arrange for your transformation. And if you break this promise, then immediately you will turn back into this cowherd girl form. And so they had him go back to Kishori Kun, and in front of the sun make this promise that he would never send a demon again. He said, you want to fight Krishna? Just invite him. Invite him to come fight with you. You want to get rid of Krishna? Just invite him. And so he made that promise. He took a sip of the water, desiring to again attain his form as the king of the land, and he returned back to his king form. And thus he returned back to Mathura. Now, Kamsa, he had this body, he just dressed up like a gopi, but doesn't mean he actually had the consciousness. He said, this actually, in the future, Radharani understood, in the future, people will think, if I just dress like a gopi, I can become a Brijbasi, but that's not the case, actually. One has to have the proper consciousness. Let's see, let me go back to our first verse. 1 second. So here Krishna and Balaram are expressing their heartfelt appreciation, gratitude from their parents, and saying that we could not enjoy. And why is that? Deprived by fate, they're saying. Daiva hatayoro, having been deprived by the arrangement of fate. But in the same 10th canto, it said that Krishna is controlling fate. So how is he saying, are we going to do it? This is So you find that in the Vrindavan pastimes and Dwarka and Mathura pastimes, Dwarka and Mathura is like one group, and then Vrindavan is another group of pastimes. There's always some separation. Krishna had left Mathura. How long had it been since Krishna was last in Mathura? 10.5 years he has been gone. He was in Vrindavan. And Vrindavan, Krishna, what did he say? He said, I'll come back. And it seems like if you read the pastimes, it seems like Krishna didn't come back. But Krishna is known as Satyavak. He always tells the truth. And he's Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. He always is there to protect his devotees, and he's Yayatamam Prapadyante. He responds to this devotee's devotion. And who are the greatest devotees? The devotees of Vrindavan. And who is the greatest? Srimati Radharani. But it seems like Krishna is this all. He tells them, I will be back. But it doesn't appear that he comes back. And then the cowherd men come to Mathura. And they're there for some time. And Krishna then tells Nanda Maharaj, okay, it's time to go back to Mathura. I'll be back in a few days. Again, this promise is there. But then it seems like, wait a minute. He's not keeping his promise. He didn't go back. And then it's years later, decades later, they come to see him in Kurukshetra. He says, I will come back. Like this. But it seems like he is not telling the truth. Satyavak. But I thought he was always, telling the truth. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he resolves this. And in our next class, we'll cover that more. But he resolves that actually Krishna does go back to Vrindavan. He says he goes back 3 months later. And the same thing with he says when he goes to when the cowherd men come, he says, I'll come in a few days. And he comes back. He comes back quite a bit later. And you find this separation actually increases their devotion. And it shows the greatness of their devotion. Uddhava, he sends Uddhava to show Uddhava the greatness of the devotion of the Brijvasis. They're separated for 3 months. And they're nearly dying. They're practically on the verge of death. They're not cooking. They're not eating. They're in such torment. Where in Mathura, Krishna had left for 10.5 years. And they're not operating with this intensity of separation like the devotees in Vrindavan. So Vishwanath Chakravarti resolved that actually Krishna goes back. Krishna, how does he go back? Because we see, Krishna continues his pastimes in Dwarka, in Mathura, and then Dwarka. So how is he going back? So it's just like when Narada went to Dwarka. Narada saw, what was the odd thing that Narada saw when he went to Dwarka, when he saw Krishna in his palace? Anybody can say, what was quite interesting? And also a trivia question. What made Narada laugh when he saw Krishna in Dwarka? Any takers? So Narada went to Dwarka and he saw that Krishna, there were 16,108 different Krishnas in 16,108 different palaces. And he would go to each palace. He would go to one palace in 1 second. And in that palace, Krishna would be engaging in a different pastime with the queens, with the different family members. And sometimes it would be different times of the day, even different seasons, all at the same time. You go 5 minutes, he goes over there, and it's winter. 5 minutes, he goes over there, it's summer. Krishna's doing completely different things, different times of the day, even though it's just a minute had passed. It's now night in this place. So when Krishna got married, it's described that 16,108 different queens married, princesses married Krishna. And the weddings happened simultaneously. And his parents were at all the weddings at the same time. So Krishna can not just do wonderful things, he can do wonderful things at the same time. So they describe there are actually two forms that he appeared. One, he went back to Vrindavan, and one, he continued in Mathura. And the one that went back to Vrindavan, it was called aprakat, unmanifested, not visible to all. Uddhava, when he went to Vrindavan, he was seeing both. He would see the beauty of the joy of Vrindavan, and then he also saw the intensity of separation, because he was witnessing the unmanifested and manifested pastimes of Krishna. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur doesn't just present this idea, but he gives evidence of this, that Krishna actually returned to Vrindavan, that he's not a liar, he's not a cheat, but he's actually a satyavak. He is telling the truth when he says, I will come back. It did take a few months just to increase their separation. So like this, Krishna is multifaceted. He is a multi-contradictory being. It's like he is engaging in his pastimes, and sometimes it's said that it's like he's in a play, but for him, it's not a play. He's not imagining that I'm pretending to be a human being. I'm pretending to be Yashoda's son. He actually feels himself fully the son of his devotee. He feels himself fully the relative of Arjuna. And so Krishna is immersing himself in these pastimes, and it's these contradictory aspects all become resolved in Krishna. Just like if I were to say the book is on the table, I couldn't say the book is not on the table. It can't be one or the other. It can't be both at the same time. But with Krishna, these simultaneous things can happen. Krishna is unbound. He cannot be tied down. Actually, he ties us down by our karma, but then somehow he's tied down by Mother Yashoda. He is unconquerable, but he's conquered by the devotion of his devotees. And so he is immersing himself in this pastime, and he's increasing their loving devotion by instigating their parental feelings, saying, we were afraid of Kamsa, we couldn't be here for you, and we feel so sorry. These are actually very famous verses. These verses remind devotees how we need to care for our family members. We need to care for our elderly. We cannot be, I am so spiritual, I am so renounced and elevated that I don't, do the proper duty of caring for my parents and the other responsibilities that we have. And so Krishna is saying this human body, it is a gift. It's so important. As Prahlad Maharaj says, he said, Kumar acharet pragyo dharman bhagavataniha durlabam manusham janma tat adruvam artadam. So Kumar, do you know what Kumar means? No? Okay. Kumar means kid. Like a Rajkumar means like a young prince. So Kumar is up to the age of 5, starting at 5. Kumar Acharet. Achar is what you're doing. Acharya. Pragya. Ya is intelligent. So Prahlad says, those who are intelligent from the very beginning, when you're 5 years old, then you actually can at least think for yourself. Before that, you're just eating and playing. Here you can what's this? What's that? Who am I? What is this? What is that? So as soon as there's a little bit of intelligence, Kumar Acharya Pragyo Dharman Bhagavataniha, that those who are intelligent from the very beginning of life, they practice Dharman Bhagavatan Iha. In this life, they practice in this world Bhagavat Dharma. Durlabha Manusham Janma, because it is actually quite rare and difficult to get a human form of life. Durlabha, very difficult to get. The Buddha gives the example that if you imagine, I think I told you this example before, if the tortoise comes up for air every 100 years, if there was a mystical turtle that lives in the water, and he lives in the ocean, and he comes up for air every 100 years, and by chance there's a log floating over his head, and by chance there's a hole in the log, and by chance there's a toothpick floating in that hole, and by chance his head pops up into that hole as he comes up for his breath of air, and by chance the toothpick balances on his nose. That is the chance we get a human birth. 8,400,000 species of life. And there are 400,000 human-like life forms, but many of them are not the best for spiritual life. It is life in this earthly planet which is most suitable for spiritual progress. So durlabham, very difficult to attain, although it is adruvam. It is what is Dhruva? Dhruva is what was his? What's the book? The Prince and the Pole Star. Oh. Yeah, the Pole Star. Prince and the Pole Star. So that little kid's book. So the Pole Star is fixed. The word Dhruva means fixed. So adruvam, the human life is very short. It's very unfixed. It's not like these devas' life where they live millions and millions of years. It's adruvam, but it can give artadam. It can give the greatest benefit, the greatest value. And therefore, every person has a debt to their parents that cannot be repaid. Even if one lives, shata, ayusha, ayurveda, if they had used their whole life, shata, if they had their whole full lifetime of, even if they served them for a full lifetime of 100 years, he cannot repay the debt. Therefore, it's mainly just a motion of gratitude. It's not even possible to repay the debt. But what the pious person is attempting to do so, and the best way to do that is, there's the practical side, but the best way is also to describe if the soul goes back to the spiritual world and achieves perfection. Krishna grants those who are descendants and those who are coming also, not only before, but also those who are coming after. 10 generations before, 10 generations after, they all achieve the great benefit of that their family member going back to the spiritual world. They also quickly become liberated. So if one can become a pure devotee and at the same time do their duty in protecting their family members and caring for the elderly, etc., then we can not repay our debt, but we can do our duty at least. So I could stop here, see if there's some reflections, comments, or questions. Manksha, I just say one word, manksha. This word is here. Those who are a son who, though able to do so, fails to provide for his parents. Both of these say who, if you're able to do so, who fails to provide his parents physical resource and wealth after his forced after his death to eat his own meat, mangsa. This is an interesting word. Mam means me, and sa means he. So the word for meat in Sanskrit is mam saha. Me will become he. I eat you, now I become you. Next life. I eat the goat, I become the goat. Mam saha. So, all right. Some reflections, some comments or questions?
Venetia has her hand up, and also there's a question in the comments from Bhima Prabhu.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And apologies, I didn't have my camera on. I'm very under the weather, but I really appreciated your class. And I had a question about how we hear from the early disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who joined in the late 60s, early 70s, that there was an injunction, if I understand it, to sort of make a break with their families. If that's your son sitting next to you, sort of, they were sometimes not much older than him, and they were encouraged to kind of cut off relations. Even, it sounded like, I'm sure that's not quite accurate, but I think you hear some people say, they were even some of the early disciples, I think it was Mahatma Prabhu maybe, who said he was written out of his mother's will because he you know so wholeheartedly joined into the movement and just left his family. And people, you hear other senior devotees say that they wish that they had sort of taken a more balanced approach to that in the beginning. And I wonder how we reconcile that, or what we may, I'm sure there's more information, but also how we reconcile that with this injunction we hear here to do your family duty, even if you are a pure devotee, which I'm just envisioning as challenging, when you think about what the demands are, or how you want to live your life if you're a pure devotee, versus the duties of caring for elderly parents, which sort of pulls you pretty wholeheartedly back into Maya. You would imagine. Last thing I'll say is, I think we've heard it in this class that Ram Dass says, "You think you're enlightened? Spend a week with your family." Right? So it's very challenging. So what's your response to all of that? And a pleasure to
Thank
meet
you.
your son. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. So oftentimes when if you listen to a lot of lectures from Srila Prabhupada, at some point you think, okay, I know what he's going to say next. I've heard these lectures. I know what he's going to say next. So I was listening to one lecture, and Srila Prabhupada was talking about how in the West, like the couples are not so committed to each other. Like a boyfriend and girlfriend, they just break up, they break up. The next one to break up, and they break up, and it's like the and so he was saying this, and then at one point he said, and that is also good. And it was quite a surprising little twist, in a sense that non-attachment, even though it may be immature, it might be not a non-attachment because they don't have deep, nourishing relationships. They don't have good family culture. But it allowed that person to have the freedom to practice spiritual life in a way that was impactful for them. Like if you grow, like you see all these trees in New York City, if they're going to grow a new tree, it's definitely going to have a big old fence around it, because the thing can't survive in the natural open environment. It needs an artificial fence to protect it. So in the beginnings, many devotees, they needed this artificial fence just to get a holding. For example, ashram life can be, a lot of people, if they did not have a chance to do ashram life and they tried to do it, and as you say, like in a more step by step, usually 25 years old in ancient India, you are not in ashram. You are out of the ashram. You are working, but they're living in the ashram. Going from 20 and going to 30 and sometimes 40, doing ashram life. If they didn't have that contrast of the experience of what it felt like to only be engaged in service, and every morning just chanting and hearing, and only being focused on one's spiritual progress, not worrying about money, not worrying about any other thing. If they did not have that, the contrast, when they later on were probably forced to come to the reality that, oh, I do have many attachments and I cannot live a sannyasi lifestyle. I need to get a family, I need to get a job, I need to get my life in order. But they remember the contrast of the temple experience, and they know actually Krishna consciousness does resolve the problems that are within the heart. It is a valid solution for my metaphysical ailments. It works. A lot of people would, if they came to temple and just read and chant a little bit, would have been swept away. So the ashram experience, it definitely helped many of those people, because it's even though could have been considered not the ideal circumstance. The ideal circumstance is, yeah, you get some spiritual training when you're young, but also when you're quite young, when you're 25 years old, you're again back into the whole world of work and worldliness, and you have but so much structure that is there, culture that is there that supports you. Like, for example, we don't often expect that a devotee from an Indian family is going to disappear from Krishna consciousness and walk away from the temple. They have so much good culture, good family, and kind of samskaras that are there, these impressions that are there, that are from the very early age, that we even though many of the Indian devotees, most of them have never lived in ashram, but there's always, it's not like it's quite rare where you see somebody who's a devotee in the Indian culture fall away from bhakti. You don't see that so often. But people who are didn't have that kind of cultural support, and they're just trying to do it all on their own. They don't have family members who, like, ancestors who were vegetarian. They don't have ancestors who read Mahabharata and Ramayana. They come, and oftentimes they go, and so it's like a little fence around a young tree. I hope that answers your question. And of course, if the devotees read more, we'll see. Okay, here it is. Krishna himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is speaking these very strong words about taking care of your family. I know many devotees that did, even in their I know many devotees that, like Mother Mahabhagavat, she was 60 or 70, and she was so nicely caring for her 90-year-old grandmother, who used to hate the devotees. And when I met Mother Mahabhagavat's mother, she was always Nitai Gaur Haribo. She loved the devotees. But when in the 60s and 70s, she was very antagonistic. And that's another thing, is that could have been very hard for some of these devotees, because there's a lot of strife and antagonism in the family towards something so foreign, so weird, something Hindu, India, cult, or just that the person needed a little freedom. So in the same way, Srila Prabhupada was saying, this is also good, meaning, okay, these young people are not so attached. So instead of being not attached and going from one boyfriend or girlfriend to the next, they could be not attached and just join an ashram. And so that lack of family stability and commitment and culture open the door to jump into a immersion of Krishna consciousness. So we can use the negative things for good as well. So
Thank you.
thank you. And I think Bhima, let's see, he had a question. Would this make Yogamaya more powerful than Krishna? No, all the Shaktis of Krishna are engaging in Krishna's service. They're all in his service. They're all Satya Sankalpa Shakti. Everything is made, is done according to his. It's his desire. They're enacting according to his desire. Like at Krishna's Vibhu Shakti was not allowing Yashoda to tie him up, but then also Krishna's Kripa Shakti was enacting this desire, this anxiety within her, where she becomes more and more full of intense desire to serve her dear son. And the Kripa Shakti tells the Vibhu Shakti, hey, you need to now allow her to tie him up. So Krishna, all of his Shaktis are engaged in his service. They're not necessarily more powerful for him. They are him. They're his energies. It's like saying, is the sunlight more powerful than the sun? It's a part of him, but it's actively engaged in those Shaktis are actively engaged in his service. Adi Purusha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I guess everybody's experience is different. I've been observing so many of our family of devotees and how they interacted with their parents over the last 50 years, 5 decades. And my experience has been that, of course, some people had a difficult relationship with their parents, but I saw a lot of devotees do it really nicely and included their parents. I was involved with the farming community, and we invited our parents, come and see. Not that we're just going to provide some, animal slaughter situation for you, but come and live with us. Come and see this natural, godly lifestyle. Come and pray with us. Come and dance with us. Come and feast with us. And my perception of my own parents was, especially my mother, sometimes she would feel like, oh, I'm losing my son. And I would just say, Mom, I love you. That's what they want to know. They want to know if you love them, and then we're not rejecting them, but we're inviting them to be with us. Suppose you're in a burning building and you try to go out, and there's family members there. You say, come, let's get out of here. This is a terribly dangerous and painful situation. Let's go to safety. Let's go to, something better. And so it wasn't a rejecting of them personally, but rather us finding something that we found to be true and wise and godly, and then Krishna showing us. And it says that we mentioned this the other day. There's an interesting Buddhist sutra about mother. It says your mother, she carried your body inside her body for 9 months. She fed you with her own blood. And then she gave 1,200 pounds of her breast milk to nourish you when you were in infant state. When you were an infant, she kept you warm. She protected you from danger. She kept you clean. She gave you food. And if there was hard food and soft food, she gave you the soft food and she ate the hard food. And if there was not enough food, she would give you food and fast herself. And she thinks about you even when you're far away. And then the question in the sutra is, how can you repay mother for all this amazing care she bore the pains of childbirth? How can you repay your mother? How can you repay mother? Can you give 1,000,000 gold coins in charity? Can you cut up pieces of your body and throw it in the fire? No. Scripture says the only way to repay your mother is to give yourself completely to the Dharma. And we were just reading that verse the other day, that a person who actually gives himself to the quote, devotional service covers all his debts. We have a debt to the sun god. If you don't pay your electric bill, what happens, We have a debt to the air. We have a debt to the water. We have a debt to the earth that's giving us food and and nourishment, and the sun giving us warmth. Anyway, by giving ourselves to Krishna consciousness and inviting the parents, it works.
Did you press it for the screen? Did you press it for the screen?
It should work.
Okay.
Christina's little one is there. Say good morning to Krishna. They're gonna open the altar. Morning, Radha and Krishna.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chaitanya.
Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu. Ashramites, briefly. Okay. Thank you, Damodar Priya Devidasi for emceeing. Thanks everyone for participating. Nitai Chand Padayatra. Thank you. Wonderful class. Bruce Prabhu has his hand up.
This question.
Bruce?
Hare Krishna. Good morning.
Ninja Bruce.
About to get on my motorcycle, so yes, I'm wearing the proper attire. I just want to say that on my first trip to New Vrindavan, I could tell that my parents were very concerned about me drinking the Kool-Aid. And I felt then and there that it was my duty to reassure them over time as a neophyte that I am safe here and I am in the right hands and I'm in the right association of people and, you know, my faith in God. So I actually sent them this passage that a son could never repay his debt. to his parents, even if it was over 100 years. I was reading this and I immediately sent it because it brought me to tears when I read it. And I had to send it to my mother, and I did. And just these little steps that I've done kirtan for them in the home with the whole extended family. And it's just brought them to a place where they have no discomfort in supporting my path. And I just wanted to share this because it was so effective for my mother and my father to hear this, that I have just such a deep gratitude for them as my parents. So just wanted to share this. Thank you for a beautiful class today. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, for your testimony. Nityananda, do you want to reflect on what Bruce said?
What can be said? It was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how devotees do it. Mature, balanced, surrendered, time, place, and circumstance, and love. Lots of love. That's what it takes. Thank you, Bruce Prabhu. Thank you, Nityananda. Padayatra, did you enjoy the class?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Hare Krishna, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for keeping your cameras on. I like your bright faces. Krishna is there for us every day, dressed up, lovingly cared for by Vasudev Prabhu and the crew. So we are in good hands, like Bruce Prabhu said. We're in Krishna's hands. Hare Krishna.